Welcome to me, where suspenseful, thrilling, and mysterious stories will draw you into a world where the lines between reality and fantasy seem to blur. When the night falls, when all the sounds gradually quiet down, leaving only your own heartbeat and breathing, that's when these stories begin. Tensions, unsolved mysteries, moments that will make you hold your breath in fear or curiosity, all are waiting for you ahead. Find a comfortable seat, dim the lights, and let this sound guide you on a journey that is not for the faint of heart. I want each of you to leave a comment sharing where you are in the world. And if you are enjoying the episodes, don't forget to give a like and subscribe to the channel now. Relax. Are you ready? If so, join me in the first story right now. Mother, dearest. Annie, I'm so sorry. I totally forgot about this weekend. I'm really unwell, so I probably couldn't have made it anyway. If you can wait, I'll help you next weekend. I promise. Love you, XXX. My heart sank. Sarah was unreliable, and she does this all the time. But I really thought she'd come through this time. I suppose I thought that every time, but this time I was hoping it would be different. I knew deep down that our friendship was slipping away. We both led totally different lives, but I felt it would be quite a shame to let a near 20-year friendship fade into nothing. It was clear where she stood on it, however, as she was putting less and less effort into her lies. Next weekend would turn into next month, and next month would turn into after Christmas. By the time we got round to it, when she had a weekend where she had nothing else to do, my Gran's old house would be commandeered by rats, bugs, and all manner of weeds. It was now going to be a long, lonely 3-hour drive across the country to New Biggin, and an even lonelier weekend clearing out the house. Part of the reason I'd wanted her to come was that I didn't want to stay there overnight on my own. It was the creepiest place I'd ever been. Every summer up until I turned 14, I was forced to spend 2 weeks there while my parents flew off to some tropical destination for a break. It wasn't until I disappeared the night before I was due to be dropped off that my parents took my complaints seriously. I left them a ransom note stating that I was not in trouble and that I was safe at a friend's house. I informed them that I would return home the next morning at 11, an hour before they were due to leave for the airport. When I returned the following morning, at exactly 11 a.m., my mother was already sat in the passenger seat of the car. As I walked up the drive, my father came out of the front door to meet me. He handed me the house key and an envelope, and looked at me with sly grin. Your mother is upset, as you can see. She wants to leave early. He put his hand on my shoulder. I know you hate going to your Gran's. Quite frankly, I don't blame you. But you're on your own for 2 weeks now, kid. You've got the key. There's 200 quid in there, and that has to last you until we get back. If you starve, then that's on you. And no parties, or I will personally deliver you to your Gran's house and leave you there for a month. He hugged me and kissed me on the head, then got in the car. My mother didn't look at me as they backed off the drive. After a few hours of flicking between podcasts and the radio, I pulled onto the narrow country road that led to the house. It hadn't rained for a few days, but somehow the road was thick with wet mud, and the many potholes that lined it were filled with brown water. I drove carefully along for about 15 minutes until I rounded the last bend and saw the small tree that stretched over the low stone wall of the front garden. As I drove up the driveway, I had to fight every fiber of my being to not reverse out of there and leave the bloody house to rot. Why was I even here? Through some weird sense of loyalty to my mother, a woman that only saw her own mother through proxy, like some old billionaire that can't be bothered to attend board meetings. She had always refused to go to my grand's house, and also refused to explain to me why. She left as soon as she was able and moved to the nearest city. Soon after, she met my father, and the rest is history. As far as I could remember, the only time she has been back since was to see my grandfather on his deathbed. Even then, she refused to stay over. I got out of the car and tip-toed my way around more potholes to the large red front door. I pulled out the large brass key I was sent by the lawyers and opened it. It was made from a thick slab of heavy wood. I had to use my shoulder and put all of my weight into it to push it open. Once inside, I struggled to see anything. Dusk was arriving outside, and the windows were so thick with grime that the little daylight that was left was barely getting through. I pulled out my key ring and turned on my small travel torch, when something to the right of me caught the corner of my eye. Something moved. I know it did. The painting above the radiator moved its head. I swear it did. But it couldn't have. Obviously, it's a painting. My hand were tingling, and my heart felt like it was climbing a hill in a spin class. I kept the torch shining on the painting and took a few deep breaths, holding for 4 seconds and then exhaling. The painting did not move Annie. I made my way down the hallway to the main room. I retraced my childhood steps towards the large lamp in the corner of the room. I would sneak down here in the middle of the night and read all of my grandfather's old books. The only thing I actually wanted from this clear-out was his original copy of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I would read it every summer. It was the only thing I looked forward to. I found the lamp. I fumbled around with the switch, as my hands were still sweaty. When I eventually got it on, my heart sank. The bookshelf was empty. There is very little dust on the shelves, which means it was recently cleared. As far as I was told, I had the only key, so either I was being lied to or someone had broken in. My only hope was that they were in the cupboard at the bottom. I looked in with my pocket torch and was met with spider webs. I made to stand up, but something stopped me in my tracks. I froze to the spot. My eyes widened to the point where I thought they might fall out. I held my breath. Silence surrounded me until I heard it again. It pierced through my chest. I wanted to scream, to heave open the huge door and leave without looking back. But something kept me there. I slowly turned around. I tried to silently creep through the room, over to the bottom of the large wooden staircase in the middle of the grand hallway. But with every step came a creak from the ancient floorboards. Each creak of the floorboards seemed to reverberate up my spine. My head was fizzing. I reached the entrance back into the hallway, and I could still hear the laugh. It was coming from upstairs. I was drenched with sweat. I could almost feel the drops leaving my pores. My cortisol levels must have been breaking all sorts of records. This is insane. Why am I going up the stairs? At the top of the stairs, the main bedroom and the bathroom were to the right. On the left was my mother's old bedroom, the bedroom that I inherited during those dreaded summers. I waited at the top and held my breath, listening for the laughter. If this was all a game by some silly country kids, they would be lucky to leave with all of their fingers. After a few seconds, I heard it. It was coming from my mother's old room. Enough sneaking about, I leapt up the final stair and burst into the room. Empty. I listened again, but the laughter had stopped. I shone the torch around the room. I had to take a second to think back, to make sure I was remembering things right, as the room looked totally different to the last time I was here. It had been turned into a shrine for my mother. There was pictures of her everywhere, some with her parents, some with my father. There was one of her holding me as a newborn, some with her and friends. All of her old toys were dotted around the room on shelves and drawers. Old medals and school certificates were stuck to the walls. I didn't understand. Why would my grandmother do this? My mother always told me she was cold and distant, never showed any real affection. I always believed her, as that was exactly how she was with me. This made no sense. But who else would do it if it wasn't her? I picked up a photo of my mother as a baby. I looked exactly like her at that age. I almost had time to form a smile before being shocked so much. I dropped the picture and smashed the glass. Bright lights were flashing in through the window, almost as if someone was speaking Morse code. I made my way over to the window and saw that the light was coming from the headlights of my car. Shit. I must have left them on. I hope the battery isn't going flat. I rummaged around in my pockets for my keys until I realized I had them in my hand. As I was using the pocket torch I made to turn around, when I felt an ice-cold hand grip the back of my neck. I swung my arm around violently, elbow first, hoping to connect hard with whoever had grabbed me. I didn't connect, so I swung my arms around, hoping to land any sort of blow, just enough for me to create some space and get out. I swung and kicked, but hit nothing. There was no one there. I shook my head and repeated the same breathing exercises as I had performed in front of the painting downstairs before walking over to the door. I need to leave now. And I do mean now. Don't leave me, Annie. My fingers froze around the door handle as if it was covered in super glue. Please don't leave me, Annie. Stay here and play with me. I shone the torch up to where I heard the voice. I tried to scream. I had to scream. If I didn't scream, my head was going to explode. My mother was sat up in her bed, clutching her childhood doll. Don't go out there. If you go out there, you'll die. I don't want you to die, Annie. I want you to stay here with me forever. The scream finally left me. It left me with more force than anything I have ever felt in my life. The whole room seemed to shake. I screamed until every last breath had left my lungs. Then I threw open the door so hard it almost came off. Its hinges. I sprinted down the stairs, jumping down the last 4. I reached the front door. I hadn't locked it when I'd came in, so I twisted the large brass handle and pulled. I couldn't use my weight to push it open this time, so I opened it as far as I could, then squeezed my fingers into the opening so I could have a better grip on the door to pull. I heard the laughter again. It was getting louder, which meant it was getting closer. Annie, don't be silly. You'll die out there. Stay with me. I pulled and pulled. I eventually put my foot in the gap and pushed the door back with my heel. Once there was enough space, I squeezed through, then sprinted over to my car, swinging the door open, then diving in. I turned the key once, twice. On the 3rd time it worked. I put it into gear, ripped the handbrake down, span around, and drove straight through the closed gate. The casualty has been identified as Annie Jones after her car skidded off a country road and collided head-on with a tree. The incident is made even more tragic, as she had been driving back home after visiting her late grandmother's house to deal with her estate due to the tragic deaths of her mother and father the previous year. Our thoughts go out to her close friends and family at the unfortunate time, the burial of the bottle. It was a hot summer evening when the doorbell rang at Steve's residence. Carol, a young and ambitious journalist, stood on the porch, her eyes filled with a mixture of determination and unease. She had been investigating a sensitive case for months, and the trail had led her to this unassuming suburban home. As the door opened, Carol was greeted by a middle-aged man, his face etched with a weary expression. I'm Carol, the journalist from the Daily Tribune. I was hoping to speak with you about a matter of great importance. The man hesitated for a moment, then ushered her inside. Come in, please. I've been expecting you. Carol followed him into the living room, her senses heightened, aware of the gravity of the situation. He gestured for her to take a seat, and she obliged, her notebook and pen at the ready. I know why you're here, he began, his voice low and somber. The truth is, I've been dreading this day for a long time, but I suppose it's time to finally come clean. Carol leaned forward, her eyes fixed on the man before her. I'm listening. Whatever you tell me, I promise to handle it with the utmost care and discretion. He took a deep breath and began to recount the events that had unfolded years ago. Events that had haunted him ever since. It had started with a simple mistake, a moment of carelessness that had spiraled out of control. Steve, a respected accountant in the community, had been tasked with overseeing a large financial transaction for a client. In a moment of weakness, he had succumbed to temptation and diverted a portion of the funds into his own personal account. At first, he had justified it to himself, telling himself that it was a temporary loan, that he would pay it back before anyone noticed. But as time passed, the guilt and fear began to consume him. He knew that if the truth were to come to light, it would not only ruin his career, but also shatter the trust of his family and the community he had worked so hard to build. As the months turned into years, Mr. Steve lived in a constant state of anxiety, always looking over his shoulder, terrified that the truth would eventually come to light. He became withdrawn, his once vibrant personality replaced by a haunted, guarded demeanor. I thought I could get away with it, he confessed, his voice trembling. I thought I could make it right. But the more I tried to cover it up, the deeper I sank. I became a prisoner in my own life, always afraid that the walls were closing in. Carol listened intently, her heart heavy with the weight of the man's confession. She could see the toll it had taken on him, the years of guilt and fear etched into his features. What happened next? She asked gently, her pen poised to capture every detail. Mr. Steve's gaze drifted to the window, as if he were reliving the events in his mind. It all came crashing down one day when my client discovered the discrepancy in the accounts. He threatened to go to the authorities, and I knew I had to act fast. He paused, his hands trembling slightly. I made a decision that I will regret for the rest of my life. I couldn't let everything I had built be destroyed, so I made the client disappear. Carol's eyes widened in shock, and she felt a chill run down her spine. You mean you? You killed him? The gravity of his words hung in the air, and Carol found herself struggling to process the information. She had come here expecting a story of financial impropriety, but this was something far more sinister. She was so caught up in the moment that she did not hear the two men come into the room from the kitchen. Before she knew it, one of the men had put his hand over her mouth and nose, suffocating her as they were putting her body in the back of the truck. They heard a voice telling them, "You know what to do." The sun beat down mercilessly on the dusty road as the two men in the battered pickup truck navigated the winding path through the vast expanse of the desert. The air was thick with the scent of gasoline and the faint hint of something more sinister. Albert gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles turning white as he focused intently on the road ahead. His partner, Bill, sat silently in the passenger seat, his gaze fixed on the horizon. Neither of them spoke, the only sound filling the cab being the rumble of the engine and the occasional crunch of gravel beneath the tires. As they drove, the landscape around them transformed from the sparse, scrubby vegetation of the desert's edge to the vast, undulating dunes that stretched out as far as the eye could see. The heat was oppressive, and sweat beaded on their brows, but they pressed on, their destination etched in their minds. Albert's thoughts drifted to the events that had led them to this moment. It had been a job like any other, a simple task that they had carried out countless times before. But this time, something felt different. Perhaps because they had never killed a woman before. Now, they were tasked with the grim duty of disposing of the body, a task that weighed heavily on their minds. They had chosen this remote location, far from prying eyes, to carry out their macabre task. The desert, with its endless expanse and unforgiving terrain, was the perfect place to bury their secret. As the truck rumbled on, Albert's gaze drifted to the rearview mirror, his eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of pursuit. But the road behind them was empty, save for the occasional tumbleweed that danced across the asphalt. The minutes ticked by, and the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the dunes. Finally, Albert spotted a small, weathered sign in the distance, indicating their turnoff. He slowed the truck, steering it off the main road and onto a narrow, winding path that led deeper into the desert. The going was rough, the truck bouncing and lurching over the uneven terrain. But Albert navigated it with the skill of a seasoned driver, his eyes fixed on the task at hand. Bill remained silent, his hands gripping the door handle as they navigated the treacherous path. After what felt like an eternity, the truck finally came to a stop in a small, secluded valley. The men stepped out, their muscles aching from the long drive. They surveyed the area, their eyes scanning for any signs of life or prying eyes. Satisfied that they were alone, they set to work. Grabbing a shovel from the back of the truck, they began to dig, their movements methodical and efficient. The sand was hot beneath their feet, and sweat poured down their faces as they worked in silence. The sound of the metal blade cutting through the hard-packed earth echoed through the valley. The only sound breaking the eerie silence as they dug, their thoughts drifted to the life they had taken, the weight of their actions bearing down on them. They had both been in this line of work for years, hardened by the violence and the constant threat of danger. But this was different. The hole grew deeper, the pile of displaced soil growing ever higher. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they reached the desired depth. They both hesitated for a moment, staring down into the darkness. But then, without a word, carefully, they lowered the body into the grave, their movements slow and deliberate. Once the body was in place, they began to fill the hole, their shovels biting into the earth with each thrust. The task was arduous, the hot sun beating down on them as they worked. But they pressed on, driven by the need to erase any trace of their crime. As the last of the soil was packed down, they stepped back, surveying their handiwork. The grave was indistinguishable from the surrounding landscape. The only sign of their presence, the faint tracks left by the truck. Satisfied that their task was complete, they turned their attention to the final step, the burial of the bottle. This was a ritual they had performed countless times before, a way to mark the end of a job and to ensure that their secret remained hidden. Carefully, they dug a small hole at the base of the grave, just large enough to accommodate the bottle. They placed it inside, the glass glinting in the fading light, and then covered it over, ensuring that no trace of their presence. The levee. This is bullshit. It doesn't take two of us to guard this levee. Nothing's going to happen. Especially not this time of night in the pouring rain. Don't know why we have to stand outside rather than sit in the cab. Could see just as bad from in than out. You just drove in today. Go ahead and get some sleep in the deuce. You look like shit. You look like shit. Nah. Remember, I'm kinda local. I got to sleep in my old bed at my mom's place last night. Go. Okay. Thanks, man. Yeah, whatever. And stop. Who's there? This levee is under the supervision of the National Guard. Turn around and return the way you came. Sorry, young man, but we can't do that. We don't want trouble, but we gotta do this. It's the only way. Mr. Hicks. What's your tag there, say? Adams? Which one of the Adams boys are you? Rick. Sir, I'm Rick. Who's with you? Just me and my dad, son. Just me and him. Why don't you put that gun down? Old Pops is with you? What are you two doing here? Let's just put that gun down, son. We'll explain. I can't do that, sir. Especially not with you holding that shotgun. You two need to stop bickering like old hens before I drop this box. That wouldn't be good for any of us. What's in the box? Dynamite. Dynamite? What the hell, Pops? Why are you bringing dynamite out here? Mr. Hicks? It's the only way, Ricky. The only way we don't lose everything. I don't understand. We gotta blow the levee before we lose everything. Our farm is set to get flooded out completely. I can't let you do that. I'm really sorry about the farm, but I can't let you do that. I've got orders to shoot, if necessary. We have to protect this levee. You wouldn't shoot me, would you, Ricky? After I coached you all those years in Little League and Pee Wee? I'm the one who coached the high school to state the year you won that fancy scholarship and hightailed it out of town. Come on now, let us through. No, I'm sorry. But you're talking about saving 1 or 2 farms. On the other side of this levee, there are over 50 homes with young families, with little kids asleep in their beds. Bullpucky boy, we heard the evacuation orders for the whole area on the radio. Ain't nobody there. They were even going to evacuate the old folks' home. This one keeps trying to put me in. We waited 2 days. Everybody should be gone. We ain't no murderers. That's exactly what you're about to be. If you've been listening, you know that evacuation didn't happen. My grandmother's down there right now. And all those families. What Amy's do you mean down didn't happen there? What? You said you've been listening to the radio. Well, power went out a bit after the evacuation orders were first announced. What do you mean it didn't happen? The levee up toward Summitburg on the other branch failed. It took out the island bridge. They can't evacuate. You said aim. Your gran is down at the old folks' home. Why didn't your ma bring her home? She should be home. Kara never did like your gran much. Figures she left her there. Your father is rolling in his grave. Hey, we tried Pops. She refused to leave. She insisted she can still help. Stubborn as a mule. That's your gran. Help with what, for God's sake? Just before the bridge went down, the med center went under. They saw that coming and had already evacuated everyone. Doc and a couple of nurses threw everything they could in the ambulance and set up in the nursing home. It's now the only medical facility in 3 counties. The Emergency Services Center went under, too. Grandma's running triage and dispatch from the night nurse station. Ha. Yup. That's definitely something she could do in her sleep. She was a Spitfire Army nurse, then spent probably 30 years running that dispatch before retiring. Well, holy. But our farm? Bill, hush. Private, have your engineer types checked out this levee? Is it going to hold if it keeps raining like this? They're not sure. There's some work supposed to happen tomorrow if this rain lets up a bit, but it's mostly wait and see. You got a radio, private? One I can reach your gran on? I'm supposed to keep it on the guard channel. Just for a minute. No one will know it was your radio, and not a personal one. Please. Okay. Here, Amy Adams. You there, sweetheart? It's Hank. Hank Hicks. You get off this emergency channel. This is for business. Just one quick ask, hun. Can you get word out for anyone willing to come by my place and drive the cows from the dairy barn across the road into the hills? I'm not there, and it's going to flood in real quick. My grandson, Mike, worked for you last summer. He's right here. I'll send him and anyone he thinks can help. Thank you, sweetheart. I gotta go. Dad, what was that about? We can be back in plenty of time to drive the cows out ourselves. If it even comes to that. Oh, it's come to that. Come on, Bill. We've got a levee to blow up. What do you mean, Pops? No, Dad. No. We'll lose everything. More than everything. What are you guys talking about? I'm talking about taking some of the pressure off this here levee to make sure your gran and all those folks stay safe. What are you talking about? He's talking about blowing the private levee in our back pasture. Flash flooding the whole farm. Darn right I am. Let's go. No! We can deal with some flooding, but that would wipe out everything. Son, it is still my farm, not yours. We'll lose crops. We'll lose equipment. We might well lose buildings too. But the land ain't going nowhere. And with the cows up in the hills, there'll still be a herd. You can use all the different property and crop and equipment insurance money to rebuild with all the fancy modern thingamabobs you keep going on about. Insurance. Dad, why the hell were we up here meaning to blow up this levee if we have insurance? I ain't never made an insurance claim, and I wasn't about to start if I could help it. Wait, what do you mean I can use the money? You mean we? Right? Nope. I'm thinking I'll move myself into that old folks' home with his pretty grandma and leave you to it. Let's go blow a levee. A tear for Mr. Pestbody. Evelyn was a woman in her mid-30s who seemed to have it all. A successful career and a beautiful home. But despite her outward appearance of happiness and contentment, Evelyn was constantly battling demons within herself. From a young age, Evelyn had always been a perfectionist. She excelled in school, graduated top of her class, and landed a high-paying job at a prestigious law firm. But as the years went by, the pressure to maintain her flawless image became overwhelming. She was constantly striving for perfection in every aspect of her life, fearing that any sign of weakness or failure would shatter the facade she had built. One fateful day, in a moment of sheer desperation, Evelyn fled her office and drove aimlessly. The long highway stretched out before her. Evelyn's journey was not without its challenges. The rhythmic hum of the engine and the gentle whir of the tires on the asphalt were the only sounds that accompanied her. She found herself contemplating the choices that had led her to this point. As she drove down the long highway, occasionally she would drift over her lane, and she would hear the honking of a car horn. She would be lost in thought and not paying attention to the road, which is something she never done before. Evelyn was a very good driver, She did not know what was going on. I need to stop this and get my mine back on the road before I kill myself of someone else. Her headlights illuminated the highway, casting long shadows across the landscape. She had been driving all day and well into the night. Her eyes were heavy and burning from the headlights blaring in her eyes. She gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles turning white as she navigated the road ahead. The miles seemed to stretch on endlessly, the road disappearing into the darkness ahead. But she wasn't afraid. She knew she needed to stop soon. The sign up ahead read, "Exit 1 mile." As she exited the highway, she felt a sense of dread. It was not a well-lit road. See let out a sigh of relief as she seen a Waffle House sign lit up. But to get to the Waffle House parking lot, she had to go through an old, abandoned gas station. As she cut through the station, she could see a shadowing figure standing on the corner of the abandoned station. She couldn't take her eyes off the figure. It was as if he was staring right through her. As she pulled into the Waffle House parking lot, she bumped into the curb, which broke her fixation of the figure at the gas station. She exited the car and went inside. It was a drab-looking place. As she looked around, the waitress said she could sit anywhere. Evelyn took a seat near the waitress station. She felt safer there. For some reason, couldn't shake the feeling of impending doom. Evelyn tried to rationalize her fears, telling herself that it was just irrational paranoia or stress getting the best of her. But deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was about to happen. Evelyn said she would like a cup of coffee. As the waitress was pouring her coffee, curiosity got the best of her, and she couldn't resist asking the waitress about the man. "Who is that man standing over there?" Evelyn inquired, nodding towards the figure outside. The waitress paused for a moment, glancing out the window before turning back to Evelyn with a puzzled expression. "I don't see anyone, dear. Are you sure you're not mistaken?" she replied, furrowing her brow in confusion. Evelyn sat there quietly, drinking her coffee. Evelyn must have fallen asleep. She felt a gentle shaken on her shoulder. She smiled at the waitress, then got up, paid for her coffee, then went to the restroom. She splashed cold water on her face. As she was leaving, Evelyn thanked the waitress and headed to her car, dreading the drive ahead. She was tired. The tiredness in her bones weighed her down, making the thought of sitting behind the wheel seem like a daunting task. As she was getting in the car, Evelyn looked over at the station. She could see the man starting her way. Panic took over, and she hit the gas, sending gravel spraying, ricocheting off the underneath of her car. She flew through the parking lot. The adrenaline pumped through her veins. The stop sign loomed ahead, but she had no intention of slowing down. With a defiant attitude, she pressed down on the gas pedal even harder, the tires squealing in protest as she hit the pavement. As she got onto the interstate, with fear in her eyes, Evelyn keeps looking in her rearview mirror as if the shadowing figure was about to bite her on the behind. Evelyn hadn't noticed that she was going well over 80, her eyes fixated on the rear view. But when she finally got the strength to take her eyes off the rear view, to look at the road ahead, there in front of her was a semi stalled in her lane. With no time to react, Evelyn let out a horrifying, blood-curdling scream. Evelyn's eyes opened, and she jotted up, unaware of where she was. The room was spinning around, and her head hurt. Her boss, Mr. Peabody, was knelling next to her. No, don't move. He was telling her to take it easy, that she had a bad fall and hit her head, and the ambulance was on the way. All of a sudden, Evelyn grabbed his coat with both hands and blurted out, it was all a dream. Then her eyes slowly closed, and her grip loosened. She became limp. Mr. Peabody carefully lowered her down. The ambulance hadn't made it in time. She was gone. With tears streaming down his face, he bent down and gave her a kiss on her forehead. Then he pulled the blanket up over her head. As he sat there with his heart breaking, regretting that he never told her that he loved her. The suicide shop. The suicide shop. When I first saw Kevin Trask, he was almost naked. Perhaps fully naked in my mind's eye. But he was wearing the skimpiest of bathing suits as he got out of his pool, stretched and toweled himself in the noonday sun. He could have modeled for any underwear ad. He was that chiseled, with long, angular lines from head to toe. I was both disappointed and relieved when he put on a purple silk robe. How appropriate, I thought, for the king of his world. He had yet to speak, despite acknowledging my presence with a brief nod. He was dead wrong if he intended for me to feel cowed by his superiority. I hated what he did for a living. Inside or outside? He asked as he came closer to me. I must have looked confused, or perhaps still caught in the daze of watching him get out of the pool. The interview? Oh, okay, I stammered, instantly regretting how I must have sounded to him, but then quickly recovered. Inside, I said. Too much sun out here, and I did not bring sunscreen. Inside, I groaned, thinking I could not sound any more stupid and thrown off by his looks, like any schoolgirl, instead of a crack reporter for the Daily Interview, a serious national magazine, a Pulitzer Prize finalist, for God's sake. Jeannie Hawk, crack reporter, bowled over by a Chippendale. Follow me. He turned and walked away from the house, and then through a hidden door in the outbuilding next to the pool. I like to use this room, out of earshot of the staff. NDAs can only cover so much. I don't want to be overheard spilling state secrets, he said with a smile. The interview will take about an hour, I said. He sat down and pressed a button on the side of his chair. The wall on the right side rolled away to reveal floor-to-ceiling window panes, revealing a view of the valley and city below. Nice view, I said. Fit for the Lord of all he surveys. He chuckled. I like it. Okay then, Genie Hawk, ask away. He got up and went to the wet bar. Drink? Just water. Kevin Trask rarely did interviews, and I wanted to take full advantage of his time. Indeed, other than a few transitory answers at press conferences, he had never given a full interview. I placed my recorder and notebook on the coffee table before me, then dug into my purse for a pen. He watched me as I set up the tools of the trade. Why both? He asked. Why both pen and paper and recorder? I always like backup, I said. I never did trust technology. He shrugged. I do. I studied him, taking in the sculptured beauty of his face, the one plastered all over the country on magazines, billboards, and buses. He took you into his eyes, forgiving all, a confessor and father, brother, even lover, all at once, leaving you wanting to do nothing but fall into those eyes and let it all go, listening to his voice as he told you to come find the peace you sought, the release you need, the end you had to have. And here I was, sitting before the real person behind those ads. I shook myself back to the task at hand. This is Genie Hawk, date June 1st, 2035. So, Mr. Trask, he stopped me with a hand. Call me Kevin, he said, inviting me to continue. So, Kevin, I stressed the word. How did it all start? Where did you get the idea for the suicide shop? People have always wanted to kill themselves, Jeannie. I made a way for them to do that and live, should they choose, and also to die, should they choose that. It turns out that being able to do that all in one place made for an attractive business. My turn to hold up a hand. Kevin, if I had wanted to listen to one of the suicide shop ads, I could have simply turned on the television. Every idea starts somewhere. I want to know your start. What drove you at the beginning and made you create all this? Trask watched me interminably, emotions playing deep in his green eyes. Then he seemed to come to a conclusion. I walked into the ocean to die, and I did not die. He paused a long second, and then began again. I walked into the ocean to die, to let the waves wash over me and take me away. I thought the pills I had taken with the booze I had drunk would kick in and block any pain. I had been depressed for a long time and wanted it to end. I picked a spot where, when I sat down, the water came up to my neck. Then I waited. Oddly, I did not think about much. I just sat and waited. Perhaps it was the booze and the drugs. I don't know. But what was ahead of me was just a blank. Nothing that held any terror. I fell asleep for what I thought would be the last time. The water would take me, and I would be at peace. When I woke, the first light of dawn glimmered on the horizon. I was now sitting on wet sand, naked, the water's edge now 5 feet behind me. The tide had gone out, not in, and now I was sober and exposed and very, very naked. I raced to my clothes, still piled on the sand. I pulled the shorts on and then slipped back into my hotel room. No one saw me on the beach at that time of the morning. I would have made quite a sight to the old couples who strolled the early morning hours on the sand, hunting for shells and health. You cannot imagine how foolish I felt, both lucky and a total failure simultaneously. The odd thing was that I no longer wished to die. My depression was gone, lifted from me like a weight that held me down. I felt light and released and did not fear the future. He stopped, not looking at me, lost in thoughts of long ago. I asked, "If you did not want to die anymore, then why did you start a company that provides suicide as a service?" He returned to the present, looked at me with those eyes that poured deep into my soul, and smiled. "Have you ever wanted to kill yourself, Jeannie?" "Of course not," I said, perhaps a bit too briskly. "I don't believe you. Most people want to, at least once at some point in their lives, only to be stopped by circumstance or fear. Morality offers only partial protection. When you do it, it seems like a good idea at the time." I never forgot that. I had truly wanted to die. I had no reservations, and yet I did not die. And in that not dying, my life was given back to me. I went to work in various businesses, creating a living for myself and doing very well. I watched as society's attitude toward suicide changed, and a new movement started. My life, my body movement swept the country, sometimes not easily, but it continued to grow. People had become tired of being told what to do, no matter whether it meant being told what to do to live or being told what to do to die. They looked at it like a new war of independence, and they won. Congress eventually passed the My Life, My Body Act, making suicide legal. I helped, worked for the movement, and gave my money and time. I had a plan that I had ready for the time that came. I saw a need to provide people with a way to explore the suicide scenario safely, to see if that was indeed what they wanted, or if, like me, they would find that it was just a good idea at the time. So, I opened my first suicide shop. There, you could try the various ways to do yourself in. I expected that many people would regret the act, if saved from it. Just as I had been, I arranged multiple ways to try. A menu, so to speak, death a la carte. All safe, unless you flipped off the safety switch. Then, it became permanent, but it was rarely used. Most preferred the safe try. The first shop was so successful that I franchised it, and it became the largest chain of any company in the country, and over the years, in the world. Would you like to see the inside of the shop? Absolutely. I followed him out of the house, down to a parking area with a large blue Rolls-Royce and a red Lamborghini. The chauffeur was waiting by the Rolls, and I expected him to get in that one, but he crossed the parking lot floor and held the door of the Lamborghini open for me. I like to drive. Do you feel you are doing all this for the money? I asked when we were driving. He just looked straight ahead, weaving in and out of the traffic, expertly guiding the car. I thought I saw a small curl in the corner of his lips, just the beginning of a smile. That's an old gambit, not very inventive, and surely you can come up with better. I provide a service. Others could do it as well, but I think my way gives people a chance to reconsider, to change their minds, and not complete the task if they are not truly committed. True, I said. What about those who come back repeatedly? Are they not adrenaline death junkies, getting ever closer to the deed to keep getting high? This time, he did not smile. Off the record? Okay, I answered. I have worried about that. At first, it was just a blip on the data screens, but at least there was a distinct uptick in the repeat visits. There may be a sexual adrenaline component to it. How often have you done it? I asked. Many, many times. I sensed that there was more he wanted to say, but he just added, "It does make the bottom line look good. Do you have much security?" Oddly, not much. But we must guard the cars. We never know which trip could be their last. I let them park on site. Public lots complained about the abandoned vehicles. He parked the car, and we got out. We went to a private elevator, then up 4 floors, and then out to a large room. A hallway led out from it in 4 different directions, each lined by large glass doors on either side. He waved a languid arm to either side, and I watched pride form on his lips in a slow smile. Each room is a different experience, he said. Each room will be tuned to an individual's desires, just like tuning your radio dial to the deadly channel of death. This one, he said, pointing to the room to his right, is the overdose room, complete with all the world's favorite drugs, packaged in pill or IV form. If you want to go right to the edge and be pulled back, you must leave the safety switch in the safe position, and an aide will administer the antidote. Tell me of the other rooms. He moved on, waving his hand to either side, pointing out rooms for gunshots, cutting your wrists, throwing yourself out of a building or a cliff, car wrecks, death. By misadventure, even death by cop. There were many more rooms. Some take more preparation, mixing virtual and real reality in ways that can keep you alive unless you've turned off the safety switch. They are proprietary trade secrets that I can't tell you. We are quite adaptable. I felt the hair rising on my neck as he said this, realizing what appetites were being fulfilled here. I made a few notes, and my mind was racing. It's a cultural phenomenon. People use suicide as entertainment. I looked up at him and saw great weariness in his eyes, more than I would have expected. He was not a young man, but looked older than he should have when he did not smile. I suspected that he was unhappy with his creation. "Let's have a cup of coffee," he said. He led me down the hallway around the corner. There is a cafeteria coffee shop for people needing a timeout or a family that comes with them. Usually, if they bring family, they don't take the final plunge. Most of the time, they do that alone. He sat me down at the table and brought us each a cup of coffee. Mine was exactly what I wanted. Heavy duty, with lots of sugar. I wondered if he had been researching me. "Off the record," he said, watching me put my book away and ensure the recorder was powered off. The rest of our discussion should be off the record, as it might be bad for business. Going back to our previous discussion, people often ask why the person kills themselves. As I told you, I've always said that it is because it seems like a good idea at the time. The premise of my business was to have a way to explore that and find out if that's what you really wanted to do. Once the laws were changed and suicide became legal and a recognized right, it took on a life of its own. As you know, I have thousands of suicide shop franchises worldwide and gather data on the people who do it themselves. At first, it was a small number, but most people seemed to be looking for experience without true motivation. I've noticed, though, that the more you try, the more you return. And the more they return, the closer they get to the end. I believe you're right. Those people have developed an addiction. What is not known is that more people have died in the last 3 years of my shops than in all the wars the world over in those 3 years. To quote that old line, I have become death. He chuckled mercilessly. Beware of unintended consequences. Can you stop it? I said. He looked at me and smiled, but the smile seemed to have the weight of the world in it, preventing it from ever becoming full. Turn your recorder back on. Let's finish the tour. You know I've never given an interview like this before. You may win a Pulitzer. We went to the last room. Inside the center of the room was a guillotine, one of my new additions. This device is one of the most efficient ways to kill ever invented. It's foolproof with the proper machine, quick in its finality, and I hope it is painless, although you can't ask the subject after it's done. Of course, It has a safety switch. And as with all the rooms, I can measure all the physiologic signs right up to the actual death moment. This room has not had a customer yet. I would expect it to be the same. The sensors review the data and come up with what I call the fear acceptance ratio. The closer to 0 that ratio gets, the more certain it becomes that the person will go through with it and kill themselves. I have placed a monitor in each room that the customer cannot see, but my technicians can. That's it, there on the far wall. If my technicians see the number getting close to 0, they know to be ready to call in the cleanup crew. That's a detail that has never been revealed. Be sure you write that down. The safety switch is there by the right hand. In order to have the machine complete the task, you have to push it all the way to the right, and a green light will come on, and the computer will ask you if you are sure. If you say yes, the blade drops. He looked at me and asked, "Are you getting everything?" I nodded. "Stay here then, and watch." Then he slipped inside the room. I was unsure, but I thought I had heard him lock it. I saw him lay down on the guillotine and put the bracket over his neck, and heard it click into place. I heard his voice tell me the sensors were built into the machine. I looked at the monitor on the far wall and saw a flashing number that started at 7 and then crept quickly to 0. "Are you getting all that?" I heard him say. "Yes," I said, feeling a tremor of doom start to shake me. I wanted him out of that room. I saw him grasp the safety switch. His hand slowly pushed it towards the right. "Remember everything I said," I heard him say, as I tried to force my way through the door, but realized it was useless. Through the glass, I saw the safety switch turn green and heard the computer's voice asking if he was sure. Holding what I felt was my last breath, I heard him say, "Yes." "No, don't!" I screamed. "No, don't!" The blade dropped. The last thing I saw as my scream faded was his head rolling on the floor, stopping next to the glass, his dead green eyes on mine. I was still crying. "No, don't." "Hail Mary." The man lay prone on the edge of thick woods, sighting down the scope of a .30-06 hunting rifle. Snow flurries melted on the back of his neck for an unknown reason, and mixed with the smell of pine and gun oil, the phrase "veil of an endless winter" entered his mind. He shook his head. "Poetry is the vice of fools," he scoffed. Through the compressed distance, the telescopic lens thickened the falling snow, proving the chalk house a quarter-kilometer away, a miraged dream. A woman came out on the porch, centered in the crosshairs. As if something caught her attention, she glanced quickly in the man's direction. She studied the woods for a long time. They stared back at one another, she in the glass from opposing distance, he a foreign and ominous presence. He stripped off his camouflage clothing, his muscles taut. After switching out to jeans, a black polar tech, and civilian hiking boots, he broke down the rifle, then wrapped the sections carefully in white cloth. He stuffed the bundle into his knapsack. Before he tied up the pack, he pulled out a clear plastic sleeve containing a yellowed file. Within it, he flipped through multiple pages, stopping at an aged copy of a driver's license. The photo, a man with long white hair. He tapped the image, his forefinger protruding from a fingerless leather black glove. He then said out loud, "Gotcha, you son of a bitch. Do you have food?" He asked the woman who answered the oak plank door. She was gaunt and scanned over the man's head to the woods. She's beautiful, he thought. Is she 35 or 50? She looked the man over. We can give you food for work, but not long. Okay, what are you? I'm Tavi. No, I mean, what are you? Bannock. I'm Bannock. Did you come from Twin Falls? The reservation. No, no one comes from there anymore. We need you to bury cattle. Can you do that? Yes. Days went by, and the man slept in the barn and spent his time chipping at frozen ground, digging holes, maws in the earth. There were over 50 carcasses in a field, bloated and gray-white. The work didn't bother him. It took his mind off remembering the night the white flash struck the horizon, safely at home, a Netflix series on TV. His wife was reading in a pink robe, his son in his bedroom. His first thought was, why didn't I ever buy a gun? The impact wave struck the house, sweeping it away as easy as fine cutlery off a table. And as luck would have it, leaving him without a scratch, but alone. Sooner than he could have ever imagined, he was arrested by men coming to his tent in the camps. "You're a terrorist," accused the broken and terrified faces, neighbors he'd hugged at Christmas parties. The only way to prove he wasn't the enemy was learning how to fire a gun, learning how to point a finger at other people, learning how not to feel anything while passing ash-laden bodies hanging in nooses. How can I live with myself? He'd ask the ghost of his wife. You can't, she'd say. Just come home. Yeah. He cares nothing about us. You're too young to understand, the old woman said to the boy. And why should he care? He'll slit our throats right here in the kitchen. The old woman, her daughter Faith, and the boy were eating dinner. Faith cut ribs, separating the bones by hacking at them with a meat cleaver. The boy's face glistened badly, where on one side his flesh lay in white, scared rivulets. Just stop, Faith said to her mother. He's only 12. No one spoke for over a minute, while the old woman stared at Faith cutting the meat. He's scum, you know? Only an Indian would bury livestock for a living. With her elbows spread wide, her pincered teeth darted back and forth, pecking small pieces of flesh. A white bone in her greasy skeleton hands. What makes you so sure he's trouble? Maybe he's been sent to help us. Now you've got the sickness to think that. I don't imagine we need to worry he'll kill us while we sleep. Do you think that? Really? Damn right I do. That's exactly what he'll do if we're not careful. Faith's mother spit out a piece of pink grizzle. Your brother will be back soon. He'll tell us what to do. What's that? The boy called from the porch. Tavi held a football, flipping it in his hands. He threw the leather ball to the boy, who fumbled and dropped it. I'm not very good, the boy said. Sure you are. Pass it to me. Tavi moved away from the porch. The boy was thin and moved like a young man, and Tavi's face grimaced, remembering a day when the sky was blue and fall leaves yellow and red. I only dream in color, he thought. The boy threw him the ball. Better, you are good. Now you run out. The boy hesitated, moved off the porch, and jogged out 10 paces. Throw it, Tavi. Go way back. Tavi held the ball high in a poise, like a statue getting ready to launch the ball. Holding the stance, and with a radio announcer's voice, he said, Listeners, he's going out for the big play, still 2 points behind. Will the Saints have a last gasp to win the game? Tavi braced himself. He's throwing a Hail Mary. The crowd roars. The boy ran well into the yard, and Tavi threw deep, the ball arching through the gray sky. The boy reached his fingers and bobbled the ball, tipping it up into the air. It then fell into his arms. Score! The boy hero wins the game. The boy's smile broke broadly, and he came back to the porch. He handed the ball to Tavi. There's no more football, but there is. We're the proof, aren't we? I guess. But it's not the same. Tavi put his arm around the boy's neck. He pulled him close. Laughing, the boy hugged Tavi. Tavi winced. He burst out, crying. Just go in the house, will you? Go, damn it! The boy cowered, his eyes wide. He ran to the house and slammed the screen door. Soon, Faith came out. But Tavi was nearly retuned to the barn. Is this what it's come to? She asked herself. Am I so desperate I'd let my son be abused by a stranger who barely talks? No. Even with your life stripped away, you still have something. Your son. He is the only pure honesty left. What keeps you alive? She plodded to the barn and then leaned against the barn door. Tavi's shirt was off, and he was pumping water into a bucket. Scars covered his back like lost highways on some map no one used anymore. You don't yell at my son, Faith said. Tavi glanced up. I'm sorry. What's your problem? Nothing. That's not enough. If you want to stay, you need to tell me. It's nothing, okay? What? Tell me. Tavi put his shirt back on. Jason reminds me of my son. It's hard for me. That's all. A minute passed. I'm sorry, but that's still no reason. What did you do before the war? I worked in a fishery near Stanley. We would spawn salmon and release them into the river. Why would you do that? We would count the few that returned. They traveled hundreds of miles from the ocean to get back. The lake is called Redfish, for when my people lived there. The lake was red with the fish. Do you think there's still fish? I don't know, but I'd like to find out. They say the deer may have returned also. Some elk. Life is still out there. People survived. Just luck in my case, Faith. Bad luck. Maybe something else. I don't believe in anything but luck. But you don't know, do you? Maybe there's something else other than luck. That sounds like a stretch, Faith. I used to think we're meant to leave something better for those to follow. I don't believe that anymore. Something better for those to follow? We didn't do such a wonderful job, did we? What about you? Is there anywhere you'd like to go? I'll stay here. My brother takes care of us. Food, fuel. Without him, we'd be in a camp, I suppose. You'll like him. He'll be here in a few days. Tavi reached out and touched a place on Faith's cheek. He caressed her with his fingers, then reached behind her and braced the back of her neck. He showed no emotion, like stroking a cardboard box, his eyes curious. Remembering, finally, Faith said, "It's been a long time. I've aged. You might not. You don't know who I am, Faith. My advice is to run." They stood facing each other. Then Faith began pulling away. Tavi gently held her neck. Finally, Faith leaned in and grazed Tavi's ear with her lips. "There's a place for you in the house. There's still room. At least for hope, isn't there?" Tavi woke from a dream where he was wearing snowshoes in thick snow over ice. He was breaking trail, and his wife was behind him in a red winter jacket. The sun was bright, and she laughed at something he said. With a grunt, she broke through the ice and then clawed at the edge where the hole had broken through. She soon slipped under. Tavi stripped off his jacket and dove into the hole. As he pulled down with his arms into the ice water, his body felt numb. But he still kicked his legs with everything he had, swimming deeper. At last, the red jacket was just beneath him, his wife reaching to him from below in the pale light. "Swim, damn it! Swim! Grab my hand!" Faith lay next to him in the dawn white of winter. She was shoving his shoulder. There are men on the porch. As Faith and Tavi came downstairs, they saw two men talking to the old woman. One man towered over her. He wore a Kevlar vest and leaned in. "We've got him, so this is a simple trade, if you think about it." The old woman held a small pistol in her hand. "Jesse, take your boy and get off my property." The younger one moved to go. He wore a vest also, but both the vest and the camouflage clothing didn't fit. More clown-like than threatening, Jesse scowled down at the old woman. "You telling us you don't want him? He's my son. You think I don't want him?" The man put his hand on the big revolver on his side. "You give us what Joe told us you have, or we'll start carving on him. We aren't in high school anymore." The screen door squeaked, and Tavi came out of the house. He stood by the old woman's side. Tavi glanced at the AR-15, auto-fed, that the younger man had slung over his shoulder. It dangled on a lanyard. Jesse glanced at Tavi. "Who the hell is this?" "You get out of here, now," the old woman said. The two men walked away, and Tavi and the old woman went back into the house. They gathered in the living room with the boy and Faith. "Why didn't you shoot him, Grandma?" asked the boy. He went to the window and peered through. "That's Jesse Rollins." "Yes, it is," said the old woman. "Now move away from the window." "What did they mean by saying they have Joe?" Faith asked. The old woman checked the handgun for bullets. A small .22 pistol. "They have our Joe, holding him out there. But I'm not giving them anything. It's all we have keeping us from a camp. You can't imagine, Faith, what Joe says is going on. He's family. It's a trade, isn't it? I'm just doing what he'd do to us. He's as dog-eat-dog as I am, and knows how it is." Tavi entered the room, carrying his pack. It was full, his feet heavy on the wood slats. The scoped rifle was strapped in a sling over his shoulder, and he wore camouflaged fatigues. In front of the old woman, he said, "I'll be needing your pistol." The old woman grabbed for the gun, but Tavi held her wrist while he twisted it out of her hand. He then tucked it in the rear of his pants. The boy had tears in his eyes. "Tavi?" Tavi went to the window. He stared for a long time, and then, in a quick motion, he turned over the yellow pine table on its side, dishes shattering, and dragged it to the window. He grabbed a chair, crouched on the seat, and lay the rifle barrel on the edge of the table. Leaning into the scope, the staked-out man 50 yards away came into focus. It had stopped snowing, and the crosshairs remained steady on the man's head, resolute and sharp. The man's hair was long and white. "There's your humanity," the old woman screamed at Faith. "You see it now, don't you, darling?" Tavi lifted the rifle. "Jason, come here." He dragged over another chair. "I'm going to go out there and draw those men out of the woods. When you see the smaller man come out with the rifle, he intends to kill me. Do you understand that? You shoot him, okay? Don't think about it. Just pull the trigger. Here, place your eye on the scope like this. Do you think you can do it?" He passed the rifle to Jason. "Yes, sir." Tavi slowly crossed the yard to the edge of the clearing. He approached the man on the ground. The boy crouched at the window. "Come on, come on, come on," he mumbled to himself as he steadied the rifle, bracing the stock with his shoulder. The old woman paced behind him. "You can't shoot, squat." She shoved Jason and put her hands on the barrel. "Give it to me." Jason pushed her away and sighted again out the window. Tavi came to the man staked down. He was moaning in the gray ash snow, his face bleeding and bruised. Long white hair streamed down his back, matted and wet. Tavi stared down at him and prodded him with his boot. "Do you know who I am?" The man on the snow stared back at Tavi with blank eyes. Tavi reached down and cut him loose, and the man rose and staggered towards the house. Jesse came out of the woods. "What are you doing? Where's our trade, big man?" Tavi stood up. "I'm the trade. Me for him. We'll take you, him, and anything they've got," Jesse said. "Plus, we'll step in where you left off with Faith, you might say." The old woman jostled Jason, tugging on the barrel. "Give me that thing." Again, Jason pushed his grandmother away, jerked the rifle back, his whole body shaking as he crouched behind the scope. He took his eye off the lens to wipe the sweat out of his eyes. "Give me the gun, damn it, boy." The boy thrust his body against the old woman, and she sprawled to the floor. He put his eye to the scope, put the crosshairs on the man, and pulled the trigger. Faith heard the click of the gun, and with the empty sound, her heart thumped. Just once, like her insides were collapsing hard in her chest. Jason dropped the rifle, ran to the door, and then stood on the porch. "Tavi!" His arms flailing, he leaped into the yard. "No, don't!" Faith screamed. "Don't you go!" Jason ran towards Tavi, his legs driving through the snow, white bursting around him, the ash kicking up underneath. The younger man squinted at the lunatic boy, whirlpooling his arms, coming straight at him. A howling apparition from hell, scars red aflame on his face. He lifted the AR-15 to his shoulder and swung the barrel. Tavi grabbed the rifle and threw his back into him, and with both hands, he forced the gun toward Jesse, who screamed as jackhammer bullets stitched across his belly. The younger man was behind Tavi now, and he felt a blade slide into his back, slick and deep, the pain piercing to his spine. He fell away and turned as he hit the ground and reached the pistol behind his back and fired into the young man. Tavi dreamed. The water was deep, a pure crystal blue. He pulled with his arms and kicked as hard as he could to fight, to descend. He tasted salt. And then his wife was there in her red jacket and broad-faced smile, reaching to him from below. The water was warm as he went deeper, so very warm. She stretched to him, her face with such a smile. "Grab my hand," she said, and he did. They began swimming against the current. The last phone call. "Mom, finally! I thought our weekly calls from the station were pre-scheduled. I was worried." "Hey, sweetie. Sorry about that. Things have been a bit chaotic up here. Solar radiation's been causing issues with communications. You usually call on Sunday. It's Wednesday. You know how space is. Unpredictable. The ionosphere is wreaking havoc on everything up here. It took me a while to get through with the available channels. Restricted, I guess. I hadn't heard about a radiation storm. Anyway, How's the research going? Can't complain. How's school? Weird. I've noticed a lot of strange stuff happening lately. For example, we were setting up the club telescopes in the park on Monday when some official showed up. He said he was with the Space Weather Center. Told Mr. Hayes they were expecting a massive solar flare and had to shut down all civilian solar observations. Said they didn't want any students getting blinded if it happened during observation. Your comms problem isn't related, is it? Could be. The SWC must have seen something. There might be. Wait. That's completely wrong. And Mr. Hayes knows it. Solar filters protect our eyes during normal observation. And even the big flares are not that bright at optical wavelengths. Plus, if there really was a huge, dangerous flare coming, they'd have issued a public warning. The whole thing makes no sense. Huh. Maybe the official was simplifying the explanation, or didn't fully understand. For our astronomy club? Come on, Mom. We're smarter than that. We're all AP students. Mr. Hayes was confused too. I don't think he bought it either. Sarah, why would they bother sending someone in person to a small astronomy club meetup in the park? Why didn't they just send an email warning to the school? Or just issue a general public notice? This guy showed up flashing credentials, telling us to pack it in immediately. It makes no sense. I don't know. Maybe they weren't sure you'd get it in time. And Dad? Mom, I'm worried about him. He barely sleeps. I hear him pacing at night. Yesterday morning, I found him asleep at the kitchen table, still in his work clothes. Well, you know your dad. He's just under a lot of pressure. More than usual lately. Always taking his work too seriously. So, how's that physics project you were telling me about? It's going good, Mom. I'll make an A, like always. But Dad, he let it slip. They're updating deep space tracking systems. Yeah, I heard that too. He never was good at keeping secrets. All of them? At once? On emergency status? Who told you it was emergency status? No one. I overheard him on the phone. You shouldn't eavesdrop. I just want to know what's going on. Just tell me. I'm doing my best, sweetie. But you're not telling me everything. Look, honey, you know I can't always tell you everything. So, let's talk about your birthday coming up. 17. Wow. I'm sorry I won't be there. I hear Aunt Paula and your dad have something special planned. Forget my birthday. Something's wrong. The NASA website's been down for days. Maintenance, they say. These things happen. They're probably just doing upgrades or fixing a server issue. During the same week that all the major observatories stopped updating their websites, Sarah, and why did Aunt Paula buy extra supplies? What do you mean? I dropped by after school yesterday. She was carrying in boxes of food for her storm shelter, just in case, she said. She also mentioned that you called her yesterday. I've been trying to reach you for the last 3 days. You found time to call her. but didn't call me. Keep Aunt Paula's phone number handy. It's always nice to have someone to depend on, just in case. Mom, stop. Something's happening. Just tell me. Nothing's happening. We're just conducting routine research. Then explain the launches. You know, I track this stuff for the astronomy club. What? 5 days ago. China, Russia, and NASA all launched within hours of each other. No warnings, no announcements. All classified payloads? At the same time, honey. It's likely just coincidence. Sometimes agencies coordinate for unrelated reasons. You know, NASA likes to cooperate with other agencies. I might have believed that, but amateur astronomers tracked 2 of the rockets, posted the trajectory data online. Then their data disappeared. And now those same astronomers aren't responding to anyone. They've gone dark. You really need to stop reading conspiracy theories online. These aren't theories. I've seen the videos from people who live near the launch sites. Those have been taken down, too. I checked the trajectories myself. They're all going to the ISS, aren't they? And why did the ISS change orbit? Sarah, NASA's. It's complicated. Just some specialized equipment and for our research. Okay? The Russians are sending up new cosmonauts. The ISS is just performing a standard maneuver, Sarah. Space debris is unpredictable. You know how it is. Nothing you need to worry about. Really? China finally claimed it was a weather satellite launch? Why did Russia lie in their announcement today? They said it was engine testing. And why hasn't NASA said something? These things are complicated. No one launches secret missions in perfect sync by accident, Mom. Remember when you taught me about Occam's razor? Sarah and the astronomy forums are going crazy about something near Jupiter. But the posts keep disappearing. Internet hoaxes. Don't believe everything you read online. No? No, it's not. Dad got a call late last night. It woke me up. I got up and saw him make several calls. He looked rattled. Then he told me this morning that he needs to leave for a few days. For work. So, Mom, I couldn't help but overhear Dad's side of the call. He said something about a spacecraft and a collision course. Mom? Sarah, it's not what you think. These conversations are never straightforward. Your dad deals with classified projects all the time. You should get some sleep, honey. It's late there. He's never acted like this. What's on a collision course? Sarah, please, I can't talk about this right now. All those launches, the spacecraft, the deleted information. It's too much to be a coincidence. They're hiding something, Mom. And you know, Sarah, it's just... Stop, okay? You're not... Mom, are you preparing for something? It's not just research, is it? I can't have this conversation. The Chinese, the Russians, NASA, the ISS, you're all working together. In secret. Sarah, quit it. Now. You're not studying anything. You're trying to stop something. Sarah, I can't do this. I have to go. How big is it? How big? What? The asteroid. That's what it is, isn't it? That's why all the telescopes are shut down. Why everything's classified. You don't want people to panic. Mom, you always were too smart for your own good. How bad? I have to go. Mom, please, don't tell anyone about this call. What? I mean it. It's important. Promise me. I promise. I love you, Sarah. More than anything. Always remember that. Okay? No matter what. Mom, are you going to be on that spacecraft? Mom, please tell me you're not. Be strong, Sarah. Like I know you can. Remember how much I love you. And know that I'm doing everything I can to come back to you. And stay close to Aunt Paula. Just in case. Mom, just be careful and come home soon. Mom, this call has been terminated. I love you too. Stay safe. So today's story has come to an end. Or perhaps it never really ended. There are mysteries still there, questions still unanswered, and sometimes things that seem to only exist in stories can creep into reality in unexpected ways. Are you sure that when you turn off the sound, everything around you will still be normal as before? Or is there something watching you? Either way, always remember that these are just stories, or at least we want to believe that they are. If you like moments of suspense, tension, and breathlessness, don't forget to follow me so you don't miss the next stories. And next time, when you come back, make sure you are ready, because what awaits you may be even scarier than you thought. See you again if you still have the courage to continue listening.